good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good today. Today's a great day. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm pleased to see you. And how many days out are we from?
From surgery?
Yeah.
Uh, it'll be a week tomorrow.
Okay. And you're doing well. You're on the road to recovery.
Yeah, I saw my doctor this morning, and he was more than pleased with where I'm at. And I go back next Thursday, and then that should be it. So,
Ah,
thank you for
amazing,
asking.
amazing. No, of course, of
Yeah,
course. I know that people have been sort of concerned for you. So,
yeah,
so yeah. But it's great to see your face. Great to see you happy and smiling and looking well.
yeah. It was a huge surgery, so I appreciated everybody's concern, but some rough days, as you know, in
Yeah.
the beginning. But like I said, today is the first day I feel great. So I'm hoping here on out it'll just be good.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear it. And as I say, you are
Yeah.
looking super well. Most important question, obviously, is did you make it home in time from the hospital to catch 6:11? Could I leave you?
Not live. We tried so hard, but I ended up getting home at like 11 at night, and I watched it first thing next Friday morning. Yeah, I watched it and then rewatched it. But I was so bummed. I was like, drive faster. But I mean, LA traffic.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do?
I've heard that that's a thing.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, the
it's sort of
405 is like,
like start stop, right? Like,
yeah, in the 405 there's like 8 lanes at some points.
oh, good
So
God.
and every lane is like packed. So I try to avoid it like the plague, the 405 if I can.
But there was no avoiding it on Thursday, and so we had to watch on Friday morning.
Yeah, which I was shocked how bummed I was. And then when I watched it Friday, I was like more bummed because I know we feel differently about this, which is
Yeah.
what makes the podcast exciting. Um, I did not really care for the episode. So, I mean, there were parts I liked, but not as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you were coming from. I mean, as you know, we did discuss it the other day, and I actually did really enjoy it for what it
Yeah.
was. So, I mean, I don't think there was much sort of substantive that happened. It felt very much like a vehicle to get everyone from where they are to where they need to be for the more substantive storylines. But
Yeah.
it was action packed. I thought it was really well written, and that's not
Mhm.
overly surprising, really, because the machine behind this episode has a rich station pedigree. So it was written by Rochelle Zimmerman, and she's been involved. I had to look this up because I know I'm a nerd, but I'm not this much of a nerd. She's been involved since series 4. She was the story editor for the whole of series 4. And she wrote 409, No One Is Alone, which is the one where it's very. What did we say? We called them Travic, didn't we? Travis and Vic.
Oh,
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's very Travic heavy, that one. And it's the one where they sort of hit a
Okay.
rough patch in their relationship and we learn about Travis's husband's
Mm.
death. And then she wrote 415,
Oh.
say her name, which was
Mm.
that was a great episode, actually. That was very Vic
It
heavy.
was.
The meditation on what it means
Yes.
to be a black woman in America, or just black in America generally,
Yes.
really. Interestingly, little tidbit, this I do know off
Yeah.
my own back. No Carina in either of those episodes.
Yeah. What does she have against Karina, man?
I don't know. Clearly
Because
something.
I'm binge watching it right. I'm binge watching it right now, and I'm like, I don't remember this many episodes where like Karina didn't even make an appearance at all.
There you go. 409, 415, zero Carina, both written by Rochelle Zimmerman.
Yeah.
And
Huh.
she wrote Too Darn Hot in Series 5, the Heatwave episode. Carina's in that one, I recall. Her little feet in the bowl of ice. 511, The
Oh
Little
yeah,
Things
yeah,
We Do Together, where the guy sets himself on fire and Travis inadvertently
yeah.
tells him that he doesn't love him.
Uh-huh.
She also
Mm.
wrote 516, Death in the Maiden.
Mm. Yeah.
The less
Yeah.
said. There are things to say, but not today.
Yes.
And she also
We'll
wrote,
get there.
yeah, well, yeah, yeah. And she also wrote 606, Everybody Says Don't, which we know is the mid season finale. And then Michael
Mm.
Medico directed this one. He also directed Too Darn Hot, which Rochelle Zimmerman
Oh.
wrote.
Mm.
And
So they work together. Yeah.
yeah, he did Out of Control, which is the one where the girls are kidnapped and held hostage on Myers Street when they're
Mm-hmm.
going to go to the party.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to Fly, which is the one with the cult people on the roof. And so he directed the really gorgeous scene where Maya gets Carina to scream by turning on the siren in the barn after Andrew's
Yes.
death. And he directed the
Yes.
Halloween episode as well. So we've
Oh,
got,
okay. Yeah. So
yeah.
definitely some.
So there's some serious sort of pedigree going on with this episode with those two at the helm. But I think I'm sort of the dissenting voice in saying that this was a good episode because most people did not enjoy it.
Yeah. So let's dig in. Let's talk about it.
Well, I know you were excited to see, I think the last 2 weeks when we've done this podcast, and I've said, what are you looking forward to? You've said seeing how Eli and Andy get on their date. And we still do not have a resolution to this. She is still keeping
No.
him lukewarm.
Yep.
And there was just a couple of little nods to that in the episode. So she is in the equipment room with Vic. She's all a bit giddy and silly and tells Vic that she's kissed him. And then he's sending her sort of stream of consciousness text messages, which
Yeah.
Vic answers on Andy's behalf, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because she thinks Eli's funny and says that now Andy will think that
Yeah.
she's funny too, which says a lot about
Yeah.
Vic's opinion of Andy's sense of humor or lack thereof.
Right.
Um,
Right.
the episode ends with Eli sending Andy like a cheeky little limerick. So again, there wasn't really much there, but they're sort of moving us on a little bit with the Andy and Eli relationship. I mean, is there anything, do we need to say more than that? I mean, that's all that really happened.
No, all I'll say is I appreciated the little flirting nudges that we got.
Yeah,
It kind of made me like Eli a little bit more
good.
because he's trying really hard and he's being very sweet about it. So it gave me 10 points for Eli.
Oh, good. All right, here we go. Little bit
Yeah.
for my fellow
Yep.
countrymen. All right.
Yes.
The girls love a cheeky limerick. What can I say? So then we have the incident this week, which is a fire at Tomas's barber shop. So
Yes.
initially, when the call comes in and Vic realizes that it is Thomas's shop, she's sort of worried about Theo and offers to switch with him. He's really dismissive of her.
Yes, he is.
And as the trucks pull out, she's sort of left standing in the barn with her hands on her head, looking
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
distressed about the whole situation. And in the truck on the way there, Beckett's hand is visibly shaking, and the team think he's
Hmm.
drunk, which is then
Yeah.
compounded by Maya confessing that she bought him a bottle of booze.
Yes.
Then Theo sort of stirs the pot a bit and plants a seed and says, you know, if we follow him into a fire today, the joke's on us. So
Yep.
he sort of incites a little bit of a mutiny, and Andy
Yeah,
then,
he plants fear in everybody.
yeah, exactly. And then Andy comes up with a plan. So when they arrive on the scene, everyone starts reporting to Andy. Then Beckett pulls up, immediately drops the iPad, which makes us think perhaps
Hmm.
this isn't such a terrible move by them. He's clearly not
Yeah.
in any fit state. And Ben's really the only dissenting voice, and sort of says, you know, do we know what we're doing here? We could all lose our jobs. And it's actually Sullivan, who's arguably the most senior and experienced person on the team, having been the
Hmm.
battalion chief, who says to Ben, we all need to be in this together, and making Ben fall in line.
Yep.
Once Beckett realizes what's going on, he appeals to Warren and Sullivan as the adults here.
Right.
Patriarchy at work. But and they're like, no, guy, this is what's happening. Andy's in charge. So
Yeah.
Tomas manages to get most of his patrons out. He tells Theo this has got nothing to do with the extension cables. He did exactly as Vic and Theo advised him to do. So that
Yep.
kind of plants the little seed for us that perhaps it is Thomas's
Something else.
theory that they're being smoked out by people that want to buy up the properties. Turns out that Mr. Ortega, now I think I'm right in saying, was Mr. Ortega Theo's fourth grade teacher or something like that?
Yes. Fourth grade teacher. Yep.
So Mr. Ortega's still inside. Mrs. Ortega turns up, starts panicking. The scene gets quite fraught. And Beckett uses this sort of disturbance to kind of insert himself. And he literally leaps into the fire to try and save Mr. Ortega after Andy specifically said it's not safe for anyone to be in there because the team are trying to get in through the back door. But he goes straight in, busts his knee on the way in, and then actually says to himself, "You didn't really think that through, did you?"
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. So anyway, he does manage to find Mr. Ortega. He actually very gently puts his mask on Mr. Ortega's face,
He does.
and
Yeah.
then if you noticed, he goes to use his radio, and then changes
Yeah.
his mind,
Yep.
and then just goes and takes his jacket off, lays it over Mr. Ortega, and lays down next to him. So, I mean, we can get into the whys and wherefores and what you think that means and what I think that means, but it was quite a poignant scene. And we see the fire from his perspective several times, and he does seem altered. The way it's shot, he does seem a bit altered. The team
Yep.
get in via the back door, the rest of the team. They rescue both Beckett and Mr. Ortega, but Beckett's quite reluctant to leave. He still seems quite disoriented, and Sullivan has to really yell at him to get him out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there was a little bit that I liked. Ben kind of convinces Beckett that he needs to go to the hospital and dumps him in the back of an aid car. And as he's sitting in the aid car,
Mm-hmm.
he and Theo exchange a little look. And
Yep.
it was very subtle, and it wasn't entirely clear, I didn't think,
Mm-hmm.
what was being exchanged, but it perhaps looked like the closest thing to gratitude and respect that Beckett's going to get from Theo, I think, for saving Mr.
Yes.
Ortega.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. Then on the way back, Theo's trying to justify what they did, saying that they did what they had to do to stay alive. And it's actually Sullivan that backs up Beckett a little bit, because Andy tries to frame what Beckett did as an attempt at
Mm-hmm.
redemption, and Sullivan says, "No, I recognize that 1,000-yard stare in his eye from in Iraq, and
Yes.
that's a man that's
Yep.
kind of given up." And he tells a story about when a fellow soldier walked into enemy fire, deliberately
Yep.
walked into enemy fire. So then when they get back, Vic wants to tell them about her day, which we'll get to, because Vic's had a hell of a day. And again, Theo's super dismissive of Vic. Super dismissive. Didn't appreciate that boy's attitude this episode.
No, not at all.
And then it's the Chief's turn to come and have a pop at everybody. Tells them that the Beckett thing was being handled, and says that their hubris is astounding and it may have cost them their jobs. Andy stands by the decision, says they bet their careers on Beckett being drunk, and if they hadn't done what they did, they'd be arranging a funeral. But
Yes.
the chief isn't buying it, and even Sullivan tries to catch her and use his, I don't know, personal sway or something, I guess, to kind of say, "Look, we did what we had to do," and he is cut off in quite some style. She calls him lieutenant
Mm-hmm.
and tells him he's already been dismissed,
Yep.
before softening, calling him Sully and asking if she'll see him later. But he says that
Mm-hmm.
she won't, because he needs to go to a meeting.
Yep.
And that kind of
Yep.
ends that block. So I guess the most important question is, did Andy and Co do the right thing?
You know, when I watched it, I thought they did, um, because they authentically and truly worried about their lives.
Yeah.
Um, I think it should have been something discussed before they left the barn with Beckett. Um, Almost like, okay, this next call, we got it. Like that's it. They blindsided him,
Yeah.
um, which I know Beckett is not a fan favorite, but for the first time, I felt sorry for him, and I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
I do think him running in was like a last hurrah ditch effort, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like it reminded me of when Captain Herrera went up and rented
Went
the
on the
roof
roof.
at the
Yeah.
storage facility. Yeah, like he was like, this is how I'm gonna go out. And I don't know if Beckett went in there thinking I'm gonna go in there to die, but I do think he went in there thinking I'm gonna do this for maybe the last time.
Yeah.
Um, and then once he got in, like you said, his vision was distorted. And he did. He just kind of laid down peacefully, like this is it. He didn't like alternate the mask like we've seen them do sometimes, where
Yes.
the
Yeah.
firefighter takes the breath. We didn't see that, and so he just was kind of checked out. He was done. And so, do I agree with the team? Yes, but I think it could have been handled a little bit differently or gracefully.
Yeah.
Um, I think Chief Ross. I love Merle Dandridge. She killed that scene very, I think, kind of extreme. I think she should have understood the team a little bit more, as a firefighter. Um, I know she had to present that because of her position, but I feel like in an ongoing investigation, Beckett should have not been allowed to work until especially for drinking on the job. I feel like he should have stepped down. There should have been an intermittent captain, probably Andy, um, until the investigation was over. I think that was really poor call. Um, and so it's kind of like, what did she expect? You know what I mean? They didn't feel safe. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on all of that. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I was actually interested to see that everyone was happy just to accept Andy as captain, even Sullivan. That was really interesting that he immediately backed her up and he was like, "Yeah, no, Andy's running this."
yeah, and she did. Let's just be honest, she killed it.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like she's really earned it. She's worked very hard, um, and it'll be interesting to see who the next captain is.
Mm. Um, do you think that Beckett was drunk? Do you think the team were right?
No,
Me neither.
I think he was having symptoms of either withdrawal or he has something else going on medically.
Yeah, same.
Yep, for sure. Do you think they're gonna search his office, ransack it, and find the alcohol?
I don't know because I don't know what his rights are in that situation. I don't know if they've got the right to go through his things. I'm not sure if that's.
But I mean, it's is the captain's office considered his personal space because he shares it with other captains on the ships?
Um, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not.
Like, it's not his house; it's his place of employment, right?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think about my place of work. So I work in a law office. So I have my desk and it has my drawers and then my personal drawers. And then I have my filing
Mm-hmm.
cabinets where I keep my files for my cases.
Mm-hmm.
So my cases technically aren't my cases, they're my firm's cases. So my firm would
Mm-hmm.
be well within their rights to go into my filing cabinet, which is a shared thing, but they wouldn't be okay to go through my drawers. So I think it,
Okay.
unless there was they thought I'd been stealing from the company or something, and then they would have,
Yeah.
but they would still have to kind of do it in a very specific way. They could, my boss just couldn't walk in and like yank my drawer open and ferret through all my stuff.
Okay.
So just literally from like a very practical stance of I don't know what the legal practices are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it's Station 19, so I don't know if they know what the legal practices are and if they care.
Right. Right. If they care. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be that, that the team just kind of take it upon themselves. As we know, they have astounding hubris. So I wouldn't be surprised if, Theo went storming in there and kind of went, look, here's
Mm-hmm.
rifling through things. That wouldn't surprise
Yeah.
me. But I'm with you. I think that what he was experiencing was delirium tremens, which is something that people who suffer from alcoholism get. You can actually get it after binge drinking. So it could have been that he'd had a half a bottle of bourbon, whole bottle of bourbon, I don't know, the night before, and
Mm-hmm.
was really, really feeling it. Or I think what is more likely is that with the investigation really hotting up, I think that he's going cold turkey. And so when he was kind of holding his
Mm-hmm.
hand to his chest, it was because he realized that he was trembling. He may be suffering from insomnia. That's a symptom of that. Sometimes they get hallucinations, people that are suffering from this. Certainly there's a lot of confusion involved that don't necessarily think straight. And, if you haven't slept well, then you don't think straight either, right? So if he, suffering any or all of those symptoms, and obviously the tremors is another symptom, then I would say it's almost as dangerous as if he were drunk, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, for sure. Either way, he was not mentally healthy or physically healthy.
He
Yeah.
was not in any fit state, but I think that perhaps the team have enough sway with the chief and have enough of her respect that if on the way to the call, even when Theo said, if we follow him the joke is on us, instead of
Mm-hmm.
hatching a plan, just a call to the chief saying we've got some issues, I think she'd have been there like a shot.
Yeah, I do too.
So I don't think it needed to be the way it was. And I do think that she's got a point that perhaps they can be a little bit gung-ho and, dare we say, a little bit too big for their boots sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, very much so.
And her reaction, I agree with you, was quite extreme, considering that their lives were at risk. But I also think that, she would kind of look at it that she's a soldier and a soldier follows orders, and they are in a very hierarchical job where it's very clear
Yeah.
that there is a rank and you follow
Mhm.
that rank. And
Mhm.
they're not a bunch of kids. She's not dealing with a load of kids, and Sullivan's been a battalion chief. Theo's
Right.
been a captain, Andy's been a captain, Maya's been a captain. They should all
Mhm.
know better
A lot
than,
of leadership.
yeah, they should all know better. So I understand where she's coming from.
Sure.
So yeah, it was all a big giant mess. She said to Sullivan at the end, do you think that you get some sort of special privileges because of our relationship? Do you think that
Mm.
he thinks that? Do you think he's sort of taking advantage of that? Or do you think he would have done it anyway?
No, I think he has shown on multiple occasions the professional respect. So I don't see him thinking he gets special treatment, no.
Fair enough.
Or would expect it. I don't. Do you?
No, no, I thought that that was a bit of a sort of a low blow from her, really.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a rough scene for me.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, but I can see where
yeah,
it came from, and that perfectly demonstrates why they say, that you shouldn't date within the same station, within the same sort of area, because there's a
right,
massive, conflict of interest. And the same way that Carina said to Maya when she was in the hospital, "Teddy's your doctor, not me," because you can't
right,
be. There's a massive conflict of interest. There's a reason that we have to keep those things separate. And I think that that
right.
perfectly demonstrated it. The only other thing that I noticed when Beckett took his jacket off and he put it over Mr. Ortega, it really reminded me of when Maya, that whole situation actually, when he threw himself into the fire, then realized he'd bitten off more he could
Yeah,
chew, tried to do what he could with a fire extinguisher, realized that he was on hiding to
right.
nothing, and then just took off his jacket, put it over Mr. Ortega, and just hoped for the
Hmm.
best. Was exactly what Maya
Yep.
did when she went into the maze on Halloween.
Yeah, that's true. Same mentality, right?
Exactly that. Defied a direct order, threw herself into the fire, only had an extinguisher to hand, didn't work, and just thought, might have screwed this one. And put her
Yeah.
jacket over the father and son and just tried to stamp out the little fires and hope that help came. So it was the exact same kind of attitude from two people suffering a mental health crisis.
Yep.
Not thinking clearly, no respect for their own lives, no respect for authority, just not thinking things through. It was an identical situation.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. Um, I didn't think about that one, but I can totally see that now.
Yeah, yeah. It hit me
Yeah.
sort of later on. I thought about it, but the whole thing's put everyone in a bit of a sticky position, and Theo's attitudes towards Vic this episode, I did not appreciate at all.
Yeah, he was really rough with her, and for not really any valid reasons, in my opinion.
No,
He tends to be in that relationship. He tends to be rough with her quite a bit, and she kind of just takes it, which is weird because Vic is usually very outspoken,
yeah,
and so that's been kind of a different side of her, which I don't know if she's scared of losing him, but very different for me at least to see her that way.
yeah, and they seem to be sort of communicating quite well. They had like a little argument ish, didn't they, in the locker room after the first visit to Theo's neighborhood. But it was all quite civil, and they seemed to sort of talk it out. But his attitude seems to have changed, and he seems very self-absorbed, and she's only trying to help, and everything's sort of out of concern for him, but he seems to be sort of really pushing her away and blocking her out. I feel a bit bad for Vic at this point.
Yeah, I do too. She recognizes something is wrong. I don't think she can quite put her finger on it, but she definitely sees it. And it has to be hard to be in her shoes. I think she's doing a really good job handling it, but she
Yeah,
deserves better right now.
yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not being treated well.
And I love Vic. She's so funny and yeah,
She's brilliant.
she is.
So Cooper's death at the training exercise is being investigated. So the chief kind of pulls everyone in for an informal powwow, and sort of very pointedly says to them that they need to be completely honest and fully transparent. And then she says, "Are we clear?" Now, I took that to
Mm.
mean, if you think that he did something wrong, if you think that he's been drinking, if you suspect that this was down to his sort of malfeasance, speak up. Is that how you took it?
Yes, I think she wanted like complete transparency. Basically, I took it like everything you guys have told me, you need to tell them because they've been very transparent with Chief Frost. So that's how I took it.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. So, like, I sort of saw it as her saying, "I'm in the driver's seat now." Before, things might have been glossed over. They might have taken a "ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies" approach. That's not me. That's how I took that to mean as well. And then I thought Sullivan's expression was brilliant after she said that. He sort of looked at her in a way that kind of said, "Do you actually know what you're asking us to do? Like, are you sure?"
Yeah, yeah,
Sort of, you are
for
opening a
sure.
massive can of worms here, is how I took that.
Yep,
I don't know if that was your
she's got
read.
to get ready.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And they do a really good job with Sullivan's facial expressions with her,
Yeah.
quite a bit in the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of unspoken, like literally unspoken stuff between them, and I think it's done really well. But
Mhm.
the rest of the A team are like in the barn, and they're convinced that Beckett's going down. Well, most of them, they're sort of plotting his demise, until there's raucous laughter and a bit of glad handing coming from the investigation room, and it seems that Beckett's place in the boys' club is secure. And Ben had called it, and he was like, "Nah, he's just going to get a slap on the wrist." And then we hear this sort of,
Yep.
very pointed laughter from him, and he's sort of shaking the guy's hand, and then he hangs over the railings and says, "Time to lean, time to clean, 19." And I just don't think that that's quite as good as Eli's limerick.
That's funny. Um, no, it was not. No, it was not. And I know it's rude to roll your eyes, but I rolled my eyes when they laughed and shook hands, because I thought, yeah, this is. I mean, they're buddies. And even later on, he told Chief Ross, I can make it look this way if we need to.
Exactly
And
that. Yeah.
I was happy that she called in somebody else. That was smart of her to
Yeah.
catch that and to do
Yeah.
that. So good move.
Yeah, what I did think though was that he looked, although he was like very smug with his "time to lean, time to clean, 19." When he turned
Hmm.
around, he looked decidedly less smug.
He did.
So there was definitely some concern there. He was like putting on a good show, but there's definitely a little
Yep.
bit of concern. And then we move on to what you just referenced, where the chief goes into the training investigator's
Mhm.
office. And I mean, just what a masterful scene.
Yeah.
Just
Um,
masterful. I think it was brilliantly written. And Mel Dandridge, like, I genuinely want to go away and write a 2,500 word essay, like a close analysis on
yeah.
this scene, like, because it was just brilliant. So she goes in, he's like an older guy, a bit out of shape. It's clear that he's one of the good old boys, isn't it? Like, immediately.
Right.
But she just picks up on all of the cues straight away. He's a military guy, and she
Yep.
hits him straight away with respect gets respect. He says
Yep.
that he's old school, and she just plays him like a cheap fiddle and says, "Oh yeah, me too. I was in the military. I understand the meaning of respect, and I'm old school too." And then, oh, when she says she's old school, and he scoffs, and he's like, "But you're." Uh, and Julia's normally like quite a quiet watcher of TV, and she did the most girly giggle in the world. And I was
Yeah.
just yelling at the TV, going, "I dare you to finish the sentence. Finish it. I dare you to finish it. I dare you to finish it." Because, I mean, talk about saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes. Yep. That I agree with you. That scene was written very well. Chief Ross killed it like she always does, Merle Dandridge. And she has a way of like saying things that are truthful, but she puts them in a way that the other person perceives them the way they want to perceive them.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's what happened there.
Yes, and even her response to him saying, "Oh, old school," but you're and the way she just says, "Yeah, I have to play to a lot of crowds." To
Yes.
to him, she's saying, "I know I have to act progressive because I'm a woman. I'm a woman of color.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
have to like play to the progressives, play to this." So it's, to him, that's what he's reading, but she's actually saying to us,
Yeah.
"I'm playing him. I'm playing him right
Yeah.
now." It's
Yep.
Shakespearean in its quality, genuinely. I was
Yeah.
I was an English nerd in school, and this feels Hamlet-esque, where really they're delivering a soliloquy to us, but disguising it as a conversation to somebody else. It was just so well written, and the way that she did it, the way Merle Dandridge delivered everything was just perfection. And the way she like uses language, like uses words to mean one thing to us and one thing to him. So
Yes.
she says, "Oh, some of our newer members
Yes.
aren't so professional." And by professional,
Mm-hmm.
what she means is they're not part of the men's club, they're progressive.
Right.
Because professional to him is conforming to the way things have been done, which is
Sure.
cover your own arse all the time. Make sure that we keep the status quo, make sure that the people that are in power and the people that are running things continue to run things the way things have been run. That to him is being professional.
Mm-hmm.
It's just brilliantly written, and Merle Dandridge is just, she can have all of my money to like go and watch her do like a one woman show, all of it. She is just,
There's actually a play, a theater play, that she is in,
oh,
about an hour from my house for a week in the end of April, and I'm thinking of going.
oh, you should go.
I'm thinking about buying some tickets to go
Oh, you should
to
go.
see her perform on
Yeah, I
stage.
think that would just be like a massive opportunity missed if you didn't go, if it's like only an hour's drive. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
should definitely go because she's just so good. But she
So good.
butters this Josh guy up and
Yeah.
says that she's glad that he's on it because it's such a tough assignment and he's so professional, which he takes as a compliment and we know is like the biggest slight of them all. And then, as you say, he says, "Oh, Sean can always be counted on. Everyone's been really forthcoming and cooperative, especially Sean. He can always be counted on. He's old school like us." And then again, the line, and she's like, "Yeah, I've heard as much."
Right.
Again, I could have watched an hour of her just quietly dismantling this guy. It's brilliant. And so yeah, he basically says, "Oh, there's nothing that could be pinned directly on him if we have to present it that way. It's looking like a no fault win for," and he actually says it's a win for us. Not to worry that this guy's
Yeah.
probably drinking on the job. Someone's died, but as long as we can kind of gloss over everything, paint over the cracks, and make it look like an
Yeah.
accident, then the job's a good one. And she immediately leaves the room, gets on the phone, and as we know, she's bringing someone else in, a woman, to join in.
Yeah. Which I think was a very wise decision on her part.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And then where he finds out and gives her a call back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yep. Which I thought was out of line, honestly.
yeah,
Um, I remember thinking that's out of line,
yes,
but
yeah, it was. But he's
yeah,
obviously like worried,
did not appear.
like you only do that out of
Now he is,
out of
yeah.
fear, right? So, and
Hmm.
I loved her very pointedly saying to him that with both of their perspectives, the department will get a much clearer picture.
Yep.
For me, again, this is her saying, actually, with her perspective and then with your perspective side by side, we're not just going to
Right.
see, get a clearer perspective of what happened on that day, but we're actually going to get a clear perspective of like how the department functions systemically,
Hmm.
like, and the
Hmm.
the patriarchy, the sort of misogyny, and all the stuff that kind of goes on.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm reading too much or if you,
No, I agree 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot said in those scenes, even without it being said.
Yes.
And I can tell how much that scene did for you
Ah,
in the
it was so
in the
good.
office. Yeah.
I just thought it was Just masterful writing, masterful direction, and masterful acting. I just thought it was like all three things like coming together, and it was just like sheer perfection.
Yeah.
And then that block kind of rounds out with the chief bumping into Beckett at 19. She's planning on going to see him in the hospital.
Yep.
But she bumps into him at 19, and
But he checked himself out.
yeah, he said, "I've checked myself out to check myself in." So he's going to rehab, but he says, "I need help, so I've spoken to my rep and my union rep,
Yep.
and so I'm taking a leave of absence." So for me, again, this is him kind of not saying that he needs help for his alcoholism, but that he needs help to get himself out of this situation he's got himself into at work, and that he's going to rehab to try and get himself in a better position in terms of the investigation and any punishments that might be handed down, etc., etc. That's how I saw it. I don't think he's getting.
So you don't think he sees fault in himself to get treatment yet? You think it's other reasons behind it?
Yeah, I don't think that it's an
Okay.
acceptance of needing help. I don't think he thinks he's got a problem with alcohol. I think he thinks he's got a work issue.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, is my reading of that. What do you think? Do you think he's kind of woken up to his health issues?
I think a little bit. I think they kind of built into that subliminally with a lot of the things that we've seen, even if they've been small scenes so far.
Yeah.
Um, I would hope. I would hope he finally has. I mean, that his team had enough disrespect and concern for him to do that. I would hope that would have been like the final straw. But you make a good point too. It could be more of a career saver.
I mean, I hope that you're right. I hope that he does have some sort of self-awareness at this point, because he could have died. And I think that
Yeah.
actually at that point he was just laying down to rest. I think that he was just
Yep.
thinking, you know what? And I think that's why he didn't call on the radio. And as you say, he didn't, share the oxygen with Mr. Ortega. He just laid himself down. And I thought,
No. What was his radio there? I thought he forgot it. I thought he like made a comment that.
do you know what? Didn't he take it off? Now that you say that, he was, when they were saying amassed crowds were saying, "Why is that guy just standing there doing nothing?" You're actually right. I think he was taking equipment off and dropping things and
Yeah.
putting things down. So I think that actually, yeah, it's the case that
Yeah.
he's screwed the pooch and he hasn't actually gone in with his radio. He can't radio for help.
Yeah, so I think he went like this, and he was like, "Crap!" Or, he said something. I don't remember exactly what that indicated he forgot it. I thought.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So it's not a case of he didn't bother; he just couldn't.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, it wasn't there.
But I do think that he kind of maybe saw it as a relief that he was kind of in that fire and that he probably wasn't going to survive it. I think he just
Yeah.
thought, well, I won't have to deal with this pain anymore, whether it's the pain of the alcoholism or if it's the pain of something that's made him turn to the bottle. And I hope we get some resolution to that. Actually, I hope we find out what's behind it all, like we have with Maya. We found out.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there will be, when this investigation kicks in proper, do you think that there will be wider implications for SFD? Like, do you think that it will be shown that there are systemic problems?
You mean like with firefighters drinking?
No, like I think with the sort of cover ups and the way that things. Do you remember at the end of season 5, Maya is talking about to Officer Dang at Carina's green card
Yeah.
interview. She's trying to explain to Officer Dang about her demotion, and she says, "Oh well, the reason that they said that they give is insubordination, but actually it's sexism and probably homophobia."
Yeah.
And when you think of all the things that other folk have got away with, things that Sullivan did that sort of got kicked under the fridge, and hidden away, and that Pruitt was a bit of a cowboy, and everyone sort of just patted them on the back, and they're sort of treated as heroes, for going against the grain and colouring outside of the lines. And then Beckett has literally killed somebody,
Right.
or has got somebody killed with his actions, and they're trying to make it go away. Maya bent the rules to save a life. They demoted her immediately, and then just lost basically her appeal
Right.
for a year and a half. So there does seem to be something going on, and we used to hear Dean talk about the problems that he faced being a black firefighter. We know that Pruitt struggled with racism when he was coming
Mhm.
up. So I wonder if they're sort of going there.
Now that you say that, they could, but if they do that, that's going to be a huge can of worms to open. Like, huge. That would create a huge storyline. But you're right. There has been so much, even within Station 19 alone, um, that Chief Frost could go there for sure.
And they're not afraid of kind of going down the political route,
Right,
the writers and
right.
producers, because they, as far back as season 3, or no, it was season 4, wasn't it, where Dean had they all had that was the Rochelle Zimmerman script, where they go in to try and get the 2 girls that are being held captive in the basement,
Yep,
and they're all held
yep,
at
yep,
they're all held at gunpoint, and then they're all taken in and arrested,
yep.
and it's the black male firefighters who were
Yes,
basically persecuted.
yep,
Then when they arrest the child trafficker, who is a white woman, Jack actually
right.
says, doesn't he? Oh, it's interesting how they didn't smoosh
I,
her face into
mhm.
the pavement.
Yep, he says that to Dean.
So they're not, and they've sort of opened the can of worms with the Jamal incident. So they're not afraid of going there. I just wonder if that's where they're headed.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and if so, would that give Myra a path back to her captaincy?
You want Maya to be captain again, don't you?
Not necessarily. I don't think Maya is in any fit state to be captain. I think she needs to.
Um, it could if they were going towards the path of justice or righteousness, I guess, and they find out the truth and how the decisions were made.
Yeah,
It might change Chief Ross's mind for sure.
yeah. Just
We'll
it's just
have to see. Mm-hmm.
something that I just a little idea I had, but
A little one.
just a little one. So I don't think there's too much more to say about that. I think we've hit that one pretty hard. Whoever hired Mel Dandridge is like an actual genius.
They are. Love her.
Did I miss anything? Do you think that?
No, you explained that very thoroughly. You can tell you love that scene.
Loved that scene. There was also a little bit in there. Danielle Savory was not overly present in
Mm-mm.
this. There wasn't a great deal for Maya to do, but
Mm-mm.
when she was on screen, she made it count. We had a couple of little scenes with her where she's expressing a lot of guilt, a lot of remorse. It's really eating her up that she gave Beckett that bottle. She
Yep.
turns up after everyone else for work because she wasn't on the training day. And
Mm-hmm.
Ben's on desk duty, and she pointedly says to him, like, was Beckett drunk when he made the mistake that
Yeah.
killed the firefighter? Like,
Yep.
literally, when the mistake was made that killed the firefighter. So it's in her head that someone's died.
Right
And
away.
when Ben says that, we don't know what happened, she's like really hopeful. Then says, so he wasn't drunk, like super hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then Ben says, well, as far as I know, and unless you know something that I don't, kind of thing. And you can
Yep.
see on her face, like, I do, but she kind of glosses over it a little bit. But then she can't hold it in anymore. And then when they're on the way to the call, she admits to the people that she's in the truck with. Obviously, it's not the whole team, but tells them that she bought Beckett a bottle of booze. And she says that she knows it's awful and she's going to help, which I thought was a nice touch. And then when they get back from the call, she's just sitting in the beanery on her own, staring at her phone until Ben comes in and engages her in conversation. And she says to Ben that she and Carina aren't at the "please stop the landslide in my head because this is all my fault" stage
Mm-hmm.
in their relationship. So, and then she says that she can draw a direct line between her cruelty and Cooper's death,
Yep.
and that the guilt is like battery acid eating at her stomach, and she calls herself a
Yep.
monster.
Yeah, that was pretty. She's pretty harsh on herself.
Very, very hard on herself. And I'm actually really glad that it was Ben that she was having that conversation with, because I think Ben wears 2 hats and he wears them very well.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got his dad
Mm-hmm.
hat because he's a man of a certain age that's lived a lot of life and, has a lot of
Mhm.
life experience. But he's also a doctor. So he can look at
Yep.
mental health, whether that's Maya's nervous breakdown, as he categorizes it, or whether that's
Mhm.
Beckett's alcoholism. And he can look at it dispassionately, look at these things as diseases, as health issues. And he doesn't look at people's behavior because they're just symptoms of the disease. He looks at the cause, which is the disease.
Right.
And so I think
Right.
Ben is like the perfect person to talk to about this. And I think he handles it brilliant because he doesn't excuse what she did. She says, what I did was awful. And he said, yeah, it was. It was awful. But the guilt lets you know that you're a decent person. You were having a nervous breakdown. You literally weren't in your right mind. You were in a terrible place. You've worked super hard to get out of it. You can apologize when you're ready, but you are not entirely responsible. You've got your part, but he did
Mhm.
his bit. You didn't make him drink on the job. Yeah, you bought him a bottle. If
Right.
you hadn't, he'd have got one from somewhere else. And Beckett's got a disease.
Yep, I appreciated that line.
So I think that Ben was like the perfect guy to deal with that situation with Maya.
Yeah, his ability to rationalize,
Yes, that's
um,
it. Yeah,
and the certain amount of compassion she needed in that moment, he
yes,
was able to give,
yeah, 100%.
for sure. Yeah, I agree. Right person for that scene.
And I loved the text that she sent Carina at the end,
Yes.
which was, hope your day was not as awful as mine. I hope for a lot of things. I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, it was subtle but sweet.
And I have stuff to say about that text as well. Because again,
Okay.
I think that it was I think that it probably won't get enough like credit. So I feel like I have to big it up because I think that it had a dual meaning. So I don't think that yes, she's thinking about Karina in that moment because she's sending her a text message. But she says, I hope for a lot of things. I'm thinking about you. And I think that also what she's saying is that when she hopes for a future, her hopes have Karina in mind, that she's thinking of, I hope for a lot of
Hmm.
things, and I'm thinking of
Yeah.
you. I think she's
Right.
hoping, like her hopes are Karina's hopes at this point. Um,
Okay.
I think that don't think it's just like, oh, I'm thinking of you in the way that, that you ping someone a text, saw this and thought of you. I don't think it's that. I think it's, I have a lot of hopes and I'm thinking of you.
Yeah.
My hopes are for us and for our future. And I just love the economy of language in the text as well. And it wasn't like overly floral language. It wasn't like Vic's line with the if I let these feelings, an inch past the
Yeah.
dam I've built in my throat. It wasn't that. It was just literally, I hope for a lot of things. I'm thinking of you. So the economy of language was amazing because it was very much in keeping with Maya's communication style, but it just said so much with just like a handful of words. So I just kind of loved it. I just thought it was perfect. Maybe Rochelle Zimmerman literally just thought, oh, well, I'm thinking of you. Maybe I'm giving her too much credit, but I don't think I am. I think that was a bigger text than thinking of you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a continuous effort on Maya's part to keep putting Karina before herself finally and other things. So I agree there was more behind the words that I hope Karina could read through.
Yeah.
I was hoping the episode would end with a return text. I was hoping we would see that, but we didn't. So
No, we can't have it all.
I know. You know
Yet.
how I feel about
I
that.
know. I'm telling you, you just got to hold out for episode 13. I'm convinced that 13 is going to hold beautiful things for us.
Is that this week or next week?
That's next week. I think we've got we've got Maya down a big hole this week,
Okay.
but
Literally. Ha! Punny.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'm hedging all my bets on 613, but
Okay.
I would like to see Diane's view on all of this, on Maya's guilt,
Yeah.
on the Beckett situation. And I think that what we need is a good old team sesh with Diane.
Yeah, like the old days. I I've been very hopeful that we would at least see more sessions with her and Maya. Like right now we just hear about the therapy, but I was hoping for more snippets of that, even if it's just, a couple seconds here and there as a filler. So I hope they don't give
Yeah.
up on that. Like I hope we see that a little bit. Which I know Danielle posted a live when she was eating her abazaba. She said, "I just finished my Diane scenes," so I'm hoping that that means there's some more coming. But yeah,
Maybe. I think that in the context of like a team powwow, I think that would work quite well. I wonder if we've kind of seen it was so big and so well done, and so what we saw initially in their first session. I wonder if it might not cheapen that. That's not the word that I want, but if it might dilute that a little bit if we saw more, because that was so powerful.
yeah,
But I do think I'd like to see a bit of a follow up, because Maya's guilt for giving Beckett this bottle is clearly like
yeah,
eating away at her.
yeah,
And it's obviously having a massive effect on the team, Beckett's behavior, because they've just staged a bloody mutiny. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure.
So I think that they could do with a good old team sesh with Diane. And I think that another session with Maya and Diane in that context would be really good.
Okay.
I'd enjoy that. And I'd also like to see some sort of scene with Maya and Beckett,
Yeah, I think there's going to be a first full circle scene eventually with them too, for sure.
because I know she wants to apologize to him and she does owe him an apology,
Mhm.
but he also owes her an apology because it didn't come out of nowhere. He was bullying her for 6 months straight.
Yeah, and that's always been kind of weird to me that he was so harsh on her for the blackmail because does nobody remember that he blackmailed Sullivan? That he would go and report them if he said anything about his drinking? Like, how is that different?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah,
It's
like
just a double standard. It's just a complete double standard.
yeah, that you're talking about in the yeah. So
Yeah, it's just a complete.
yep,
Sullivan gets a grumpy look. Maya gets bullied for 6 months. And then when she snaps and does something to try and end the cycle,
yep,
she's vilified.
yep.
And she's vilifying herself. And I don't think that he feels bad. I don't
No,
think Beckett feels bad at this point.
no.
At least there's some contrition coming from her.
Yeah,
So I think it's a double standard. And I hope that all of that kind of gets raised and hashed out. But
yeah.
it was all very heavy, until we got to the Charlie's Angels trio of Station 19 that are Carina, Vic, and Dr. Diane.
Yes, let's talk about it.
Oh my God, I loved them.
Good trio, just what we needed.
Like Vic and Karina was getting good. Like their dynamic was getting really good. And like we'd had some really great scenes with them. Um,
Yeah,
And it just turns out that Tracy Toms is just like
yes,
golden. Like no matter who you stick her with, she's just going to just raise the level of things.
she is.
Like she's just so good. But Vic's on desk duty. Karina turns up, and literally before she's in the door with her box, she's like scoping out the place. Like, where's my?
Loved that scene. It was small, it was short, but loved it.
Yeah. And then she says that she's kind of got a crush on her wife. Like it feels like the early days when they're both into each other, but no one wants to come across too keen. And yeah, and she
Yeah,
has a crush on her own wife. And like when she's very energized and she's gesticulating with big kind of dramatic arm movements, and everything's very high energy. And then Vic's like, yeah, she's on a call, and you just literally see all of
drain.
the
Yeah,
energy drain out
boom.
of her, and she's just absolutely gutted.
Yep, yep. Which was sweet too.
Yeah. So she goes off to unpack her box. In comes Dr. Diane,
Yep,
and she and Vic are gonna do some Crisis One stuff.
yep,
Um,
yep.
and Diane and Vic have like what a great energy between those two.
Yeah, good chemistry there.
Wasn't it
Yeah,
brilliant?
it was.
They talked about absolutely nothing. They were just chatting about like a handsome professor.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was just brilliant.
That was funny.
But it was just riveting.
It was.
Yeah, they just had like this really easy chemistry, as you said. It was just a really great dynamic. I really enjoyed it.
No, that was written very well and executed by Vic and Diane.
And then they're all in the beanery. Karina's still unpacking her boxes, and then she can resist the temptation no more. bobs her little head round the corner, and it's like, "You're Diane, right? The Diane, like Maya's therapist, Diane."
Yeah.
and, and Diane's kind of like, "Arr." And Karina's like, "Yeah, thought so,"
Yep.
and then
Goes
goes
right
back
back.
round the
Yeah, yeah.
corner.
That was cute.
Yeah. And then Vic discloses what we were saying, which is that there's definitely, she kind of drops a little hint that like there's something going on between her and Theo, because she says, "Oh, well, if I knew someone could mine the crevices of my boyfriend's mind." But then when Diane kind of pushes, Vic's like, no, it's nothing. He's just working through some stuff. So she kind of doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah,
I
she
think.
downplays it for sure.
Yeah. Carina does not downplay anything. That is not Carina's way.
No.
So she's very pleased with herself because she's found a workaround for HIPAA. So she thinks.
She has. It's got 3 questions like a genie.
If she asks Diane how Diane feels about Maya's progress, that's not about Maya, that's about Diane.
Yep.
So Diane is hilarious and says, "Yep, 3 questions." Carina excitedly goes, "Really?" And Diane's like, "That's 1 down."
That was so funny.
It was so good. It was just we needed it. We needed this kind of like light relief.
Yeah.
And this,
Yeah, for sure.
And the 3 of them were just superb. But Karina's very excited that she's found this little workaround, and her first question is if Maya is clinically doing better, which obviously Diane can't answer, right? Because that would be a breach of HIPAA. You're the HIPAA expert.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't feel like it's quite HIPAA, but it is. I mean, there are worse things she could say. So just saying, is she better? Yes. I mean, she's not really delving, giving her
Detailed
any.
information.
Yes, I think she could have said yes without actually breaking it.
But I quite liked the way that she kind of rephrased the question and said, "Well, what would my answering yes mean for you?" Because she did a number on Carina. She did a Diane on Carina.
She did.
Because she made Carina kind of think about what she's actually asking her. Like, why are you asking me that?
And I loved that.
Yeah, is that actually the answer that you want, or is there really a different question in mind? Like, are you asking me the right question?
Right.
Basically, Diane says that she thinks that Maya and Carina are getting somewhere. And then Karina's next question is if she and Maya are going to make it. Diane rightfully says that she doesn't know. And then I think Carina speaks for all of us when she says, "Yes, you do know, because you're Diane."
Yeah. Diane was saying, Diane, we trust, right?
Exactly. Diane knows everything. Diane is like
Yoda.
Diane is everything. She is like Yoda. She is exactly like Yoda. I mean, she's taller, and she looks pretty, good in that uniform, better than Yoda. But other than that, she is Yoda.
It's like a Jedi mind master.
Exactly. Again, she does a number on Carina because she says that Carina has to think about what she wants and then figure out a way to make it work and ask for what she wants, and she hurts Carina's delicate little head.
Yes, she does. So my brain hurts or something like that.
Yeah, my head hurts, and Vic's like, "Yeah, that's what happens. Welcome to the club."
Welcome to Diane.
You've just been Dianed. But then their day takes an unexpected turn because Vic and Diane are doing some admin when a smashed up car rolls into the barn, horn blaring, with a whole deer, inclusive of antler, riding the front of this car.
Yes.
Diane is extremely excited to be able to go into firefighter mode, but still doesn't leave the Diane, Dr. Diane behind. She immediately gives the driver of the car a pep talk and tells her that she's done very well under the circumstances to find her way to a fire station.
Yeah.
Carina tells this poor woman that she doesn't know her luck because she's rolled in with her, Vic, and Diane, who are, I reiterate, the Charlie's Angels of Station 19.
Yes.
And this woman's like, "Look, there are antlers literally inside my body."
Yeah.
And everything that, all of the dialogue was just gold. And I loved how they wrote Monica, her name was, wasn't it? The victim. she basically out Vic's Vic.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cute how they went back, how her and Vic went back and forth for sure.
Yeah. And we sort of get the sort of the backstory as to how she ended up impaled, which is that she was a New York City resident, like born and raised New Yorker, married a husband who was a city guy, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he said, "No, let's sell the startup and move back to Seattle." And she
Mm-hmm.
followed him because she loved him, but now she kind of hates her life, and she feels tricked by her husband because she thought that she'd married this city slicker guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
turned out to not be that at all. And he tricked her because she was already in love with him when it was revealed that he was not what she thought, and their future was not what she thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the cogs turning for Carina,
Yep.
who's kind of thinking, "Hmm, this is sounding mighty familiar."
Yeah, and you can see that on her face immediately.
Yeah, but there's the superb comedic moment where they're cutting the deer's antlers
Oh
away
yeah,
from the deer, and then it
yeah,
spasms, and they all
yeah.
just scream.
That was cute.
Um, yeah, and Karina's like, "No, it's dead. It's fully dead." Well, I think I checked its pulse, and this woman's like,
Yeah,
"I thought you were a doctor." Yeah, but not of deer.
yeah,
And it was just like all these like little light moments, just um, kind of really made the scene what it was, I think. And once they've kind of extricated this woman from the car, they've kind of cut the antlers off. They've got her out of the car. They're loading her into the ambulance, and she just kind of has like a mental breakthrough moment. And she says that although she and her husband really love each other, she loves who she was before she met him more than
yeah,
them and him.
yep,
And that she should have listened to her gut. And instead, she now has an antler in it, and she needs to do something with her life so that it feels like hers again. And again, we've got Carina clearly like drawing parallels, because
yep.
when the ambulance looks away, she looks absolutely crestfallen.
She does.
Um,
Yeah.
Diane, on the other hand, can't wait for the ambulance to leave so that she can like have a 30-second dance party.
Yeah, super pumped.
She's very pleased with herself. Doesn't even realize that Carina at this point is like crouched down by the smashed up car
No,
in
yeah,
floods of tears. Um, and bless her, Karina like tries to make the effort. She tries to smile and give like a little high five, but she's in bits. And then she's trying to analyze if she's the car, if she's Monica, if she's the antler, if she's an antler in Maya's gut. We get the cute little foot stamp again.
yeah, yeah. Love that
I
signature.
might have to start a Twitter account of Karina's left foot.
Yeah,
Um,
signature Stefania move.
yeah. And then Diane kind of goes back into doctor mode and says, breathe, it's okay. But Karina's just not sure where she stands and wants to know if she's signing up for more pain. And
Yeah,
it's Vic who steps into the breach and does what she's done a couple of times now for Karina, which is to be the voice of reason and to
yeah,
be a really good friend to her. And she says, "Look, I'm going to answer the question that Diane wouldn't answer upstairs, which is, are you and Mai going to make it through the other side better and stronger than ever?" And you absolutely are. And then Diane does what you were. Do you remember when we were talking about the session between Maya and Diane, and you were like, "I wish that Diane could just be on FaceTime," and
yeah,
and then you said that you wish that Maya had said to Karina, "No, I'm going to therapy for you. I'm not doing this for my job.
yeah.
I'm doing it for you." And so you get a little bit of payoff, right? Because Diane
Yes,
actually
yep,
confirms for Karina, no, the first session was mandatory.
yes,
The rest has been for you and your marriage.
yes.
So
I cheered for that. That was exactly what I've been wanting. So that was
I thought of
perfect.
you as
Yeah,
as soon as Diane said that. I was like, Tiffany's going to be happy. There we go.
yeah,
There it is.
yes, I was. So
And then
yeah,
Karina goes off to deliver a baby. Vic, Vic, Vic with her, "Could an antler do that?"
yeah, yeah. Always count on Vic for a one-liner.
But then Vic and Diane have a little celebration. They're going to have venison for dinner, and
Yeah, that was funny.
that endeth the scene. So for me, bit of lightness. despite the seriousness of the situation, like great writing, superb acting. We had outright deliberate comedy, kind of slapstick stuff with all the big screams and all the stuff, down to like the very like delicate little touches, like where Monica says, I was scared of this sort of thing happening when I learned to drive, and Karina's face, because she could have played it big, right? She could have
Yeah.
like she could have gone, you were worried about this sort of thing happening, but it was like the little
Yeah.
tiny expression on her face and the little mouth movements when she was trying to compute. You were worried about this sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
I just thought it was great from beginning to end. What about you?
Yes, I did. I thought it was a perfect way to end this thing.
Hi guys, Melissa here. Unfortunately, recording that episode ended quite abruptly when life got in the way. However, we reconvened, so join us for part 2 when we finish capping off that episode and preview 12. See you soon.